Today's meeting covered a wide range of topics, including ongoing discussions on transgender athletes and the continued hate and vitriol directed at players online. There are no immediate eligibility matters affecting the WNBA. Yes, there are. And we strongly denounce the bad faith efforts to use these topics to demean or marginalize others. In other words, we have no idea how to handle this.
Well, and they said there's no matters at hand they have to deal with. There are.
Yes, too.
Because with Enes Kanter and Royce White declaring their eligibility, right. I looked through the 409-page plea bargain, basically sort of constitution that the WNBA has. And it says that to be eligible, you have to be a, quote, woman.
A single statement about transgender athletes potentially joining the WNBA has sparked a debate the league may not have anticipated. What initially seemed like a straightforward defense quickly grew into a much bigger controversy, with fans questioning where the league should draw the line and what this could mean for the future of women's basketball. But one major question has received far less attention. What happens if this debate eventually puts the players themselves at the center of the controversy?
WNBA, which says, some of their coaches have been saying, that men who identify as women should be eligible to play in the league. Okay, now there's a French superstar, 21 points she's averaging, and by she I mean he, 20 rebounds a game, okay?
I want to tell you what's going to happen when the Democrats get back in office. You know what's going to happen? The transgenders are going to sue. They're going to sue the WNBA for gender-based discrimination under the 1964 Civil Rights Act that our ancestors fought for. Here we go again. Barack Obama appropriating black justice for white gays. Here we go.
The WNBA was supposed to be all about basketball, but the league has increasingly found itself caught in a political storm. What should feel like a professional sports season now resembles an unpredictable Netflix drama, with controversy after controversy, leaving fans wondering what the next episode will bring.
While Sophie Cunningham, because of the statements that she made about biological boys playing in women's sports, she is getting booed on and off the court. People are being even more aggressive towards her. Anti-trans and pro-trans protesters are now facing off at games, literally inside the arenas and outside beforehand. Meanwhile, at every single interview, players are getting hounded to give their opinions. And then, of course, you have the coaches. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but Indiana Fever coach Stephanie White, I believe her name is, she seems completely disconnected from her players, Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham is going through all these things. Obviously, Caitlin Clark has been attacked and vilified for years now, and Stephanie White has nothing to say about it.
Now, the latest controversy centers on transgender athletes, with the league emphasizing inclusion and calling for the issue to be discussed respectfully. But critics are pressing for a clear answer to one key question. Where exactly does the WNBA draw the line?
Girls were holding signs supporting Sophie Cunningham following her comments about transgender participation in women's sports, and the WNBA ruled that the interaction violated its fan code of conduct, the Storm issuing an apology for the incident afterwards. Sophie, without sort of revisiting the actual issue that brought us to this point, I would just love if to get your thoughts on the league's discipline of an owner over a fan interaction.
Yeah, I think I have a very clear and strong perspective on this. With that being said, though, I think I know that people are not always going to align and agree. I totally understand that.
Before this story goes any further, there's one important fact that often gets lost in the noise. There is currently no transgender woman playing in the WNBA, and there has never been a player who was assigned male at birth competing in the league. The debate is about eligibility rules, league policy, and what could potentially happen in the future, not about a transgender player currently taking another athlete's roster spot.
And now threatening to join the WNBA, blatantly proving that women were right to choose the bear. Also, a bunch of Sophie Cunningham. So, before anybody gets confused, it's not the setup to a joke about the NBA finally discovering women's basketball. Former NBA players Enes Kanter, Freedom, and Royce White have recently announced that they intend to declare for the WNBA draft, arguing that if the league is going to allow players to identify as women, then apparently they should be allowed to play too, right? So what it is it sounds like these guys are making a statement on transgender women, but they're not.
That distinction is important because the WNBA's current collective bargaining language states that only women are eligible to play, while the league's rules do not provide a detailed public definition of exactly who qualifies under that wording. That ambiguity has fueled the debate. Supporters argue it leaves room for greater inclusion, while critics worry that unclear standards could eventually raise questions about competitive fairness in women's basketball. So why is the WNBA dealing with this issue now? The debate has been developing for years, but in 2026, several events pushed it into the center of the league's already intense spotlight. The latest wave of attention followed comments from Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham, prompting the WNBA to respond. But the league did not announce that a transgender athlete was joining the WNBA, entering the draft, or signing with a team. Instead, it pushed back against what it characterized as bad faith attempts to create controversy around transgender participation, and emphasized that there were no current eligibility issues involving transgender players. In other words, the controversy is centered on policy and future possibilities, not a current transgender player taking a spot on a WNBA roster.
NBA facing a culture war sparked by Sophie Cunningham. So the Indiana Fever Guard's mission to, quote, protect young girls in the locker room has become a right-wing flashpoint. So much so that two former NBA players are declaring for the 2027 WNBA draft. Ness Cantor and Royce White both say they suddenly identify as women. Now, White even unveiled a new wig, saying he's in his feminine era. Now, I just want to be clear, no openly trans woman has played in the WNBA. League policy simply states that only women are eligible.
In other words, the WNBA was essentially asking everyone to take a step back, but telling the internet to calm down is about as effective as asking a basketball to stop bouncing. Instead of fading away, the controversy only grew. Once a debate about transgender participation enters professional sports, it rarely stays limited to the court. The league's anti-hate task force has also discussed the broader issue, raising an important question. If inclusion remains a central principle, what would clear eligibility standards actually look like? Would there be specific requirements, competitive considerations, or different standards depending on an athlete's circumstances? And perhaps most importantly, would those rules be written clearly enough for players, coaches, teams, and fans to understand exactly where the boundaries stand, without having to decipher them like the fine print on a phone contract? Those questions matter because professional sports are not simply social institutions where participation is determined by personal preference. They also operate under competitive rules designed to create consistent standards for everyone.
Of having that respect, having that love, and pursuing peace in these conversations, in these debates, because I think that is healthy. Now, with that being said, I just hate how the basketball of it all is just getting overshadowed. I think that you are seeing teams playing at the highest level they've ever played at. You see great basketball, the most elite level basketball this league has ever seen. And it just makes me sad that all this kind of drama and things that truly don't matter are getting overshadowed. The basketball is getting overshadowed. And so my biggest thing is love and respect. I think there's room for absolutely everybody. We don't always have to agree, but that respect and love definitely has to be there.